Hey everyone, welcome to the TrainRight podcast. We're about to speak with Gina Lucrezi. She's a good friend of mine. I'll actually share with you the story of how we met, which is quite hilarious. I'd actually forgotten about it until she shared this lovely story. So I hope you guys enjoy that. But why I wanted to talk with Gina today was to discuss with her about Trail Sisters, this kind of brainchild, as she puts it, this thing that she created because she saw a need for the voices of basically half the participants in the trail running community, the women participants. She saw a need for their voices to be heard. And so she started this basically an online journal that she called Trail Sisters. And we have some really interesting conversations about some various topics in the sport of trail running, but we also talk about gender equality, which I think is a topic that can transcend not only trail running, but all sports in general. So I hope you guys enjoy our conversation. Well, hey guys, and welcome to the TrainRight podcast. This week I have a special guest, my good friend, Gina Lucrezi. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much. I'm honored to be on the podcast today, and it's great to see you.
Yeah, virtually. I know, like I'm in France, you're in Buena Vista. I have to like do all these, all these things from afar. I've already listeners know who you are. I've done a little bit of a bio, but I just kind of want to take it back. Like, how did we meet? Do you remember?
Jeez, I think
it was at Leadville.
Leadville, or was that Hard Rock? It was either Leadville or Hard Rock. I can't remember.
Oh yes. My God, we have a story. You can tell the Hard Rock story.
Yeah, because we may have met at Leadville, but I remember Hard Rock stands out in my mind specifically for that story, I guess. But we were watching the race, and it was, I think it was the start of the race, wasn't it? It was either the start or the end.
I think it was the end of the race, and it was like the notorious race where like Anna Frost and Darcy. This is like a perfect segue into today's topic because like strong women like battling it out at Hard Rock, Hard Rock.
Yes.
Like Darcy Picayune and Anna Frost were like going back and forth. Like this is a thing at the end of the race, like the final river crossing.
Right. And so we were hauling ass in the car to get there. We got there and we got out of the car. We're running up the road to watch, see who's going to cross the river. And next thing, turn around and like, Hillary's not with us. Wait, what happened? You tripped over some like choss that had fallen off the side of like the hill there because it's so rocky. You had that huge gusher coming out of your knee.
Oh my God. I remember that. I was so pissed. Like literally, oh my God, this is like pre-accident. All of this thing with me, like literally was on the road. And I think there was only one rock and I hit it. And I think I fell on that same rock and like just gashed open my knee. Oh my God, Justin, your boyfriend at the time, now your husband. Right? I got his Justin, right? Yeah. I remember he was like totally like survival mode. He was like probably gonna like fireman carry me into the freaking gymnasium. Like, oh my God. I did. Wow. I like literally, and then I remember like I was just thinking like I was in the gymnasium and I literally like was crying. I was like covering my face because I was just like, there's all these people out here who've done Hard Rock. And I'm like, I tripped on the side of the road and I need stitches. Like, I was so embarrassed.
I remember you were like contemplating, should I go in? Should I not? And we're like, yes, you should do it. It's a decent gash.
It's free. Like you don't have to go to the hospital. Like, you should go.
Yes.
So literally, I sat down, this guy who was like a nurse and he's all just like, he's like, let me go run up and get my stitch kit from my hotel room. I'm like, is this legitimate?
Yeah. But I do remember this because I know you were gearing up, I think it was for Speed Go.
Yes.
But then you went out and you crushed Speed Go. I was like, holy shoot, she just did that with like stitches in her knee.
I still had the stitches in my knee. There's no scar now. It healed up fine. But I literally did Speed Go with stitches in my knee. And I think I set the course record that year, which has now been like broken, but still.
Yeah, but you did. I remember thinking that's like, holy crap.
Oh my gosh, this is hilarious. Yes, this is like, I think, how our friendship begun. Like, it was like budding friendship over like saving me over some like crazy thing that I did. Oh my gosh.
Oh man, that was fun though. It was cool.
Oh my, I've like literally forgotten about that story. Holy crap, that's so funny. But then like, I think actually, and then from there, I mean, I know your good friend Ashley Arnold, and I don't know when you started up. So the reason why I wanted to have you on the show is just because you've created Trail Sisters. Like, it's an online community, but first, how I found out about it, it was basically like is a resource for women and people in the trail running community. And it held a bunch of blogs and like information for people to go to. Like, I was one of the like original writers for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and it's just kind of like exploded from there. So yeah, I guess I just kind of want you to introduce the topic of like, what is Trail Sisters, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Sure. Yeah, it was like a little brainchild back in like, or I should say it's a passion project, you know, so launched April 11th of 2016, but I had reached out to 7 people, and you were one of those 7, and kind of explained the idea. And the original thought process, the whole thing was like, hey, you know, like from where I was sitting, I'd worked in the industry. I'd, you know, whether it was behind the scenes for, you know, out like trail running brands, I'd worked for some trail running publications and things like that. And then was doing contract work. I'd been a team manager, and I was running professionally. So
yeah, I was like, not to mention that. So like, you're like a business liaison woman at like Powerhouse, but then also like you are a crusher mountain runner. So let's not forget about that.
Oh, well, thanks. Not so much anymore, but
no,
but
it's because you've got like lots of other things going on, but still like it's there.
yeah. Hopefully next year come back a little bit, but yeah, you know, from where I was sitting with all that stuff, I had noticed this huge lack of encouragement and lack of female voice in the sport, and it kind of drove me bonkers. And I figured instead of just getting upset about it, I should try to do something. You know, a lot of times people, they see things they don't like, and we like to complain, and that's totally cool, but do something about it. Don't just sit there and talk about how you don't like something. Make a change. And so I was like, well, how can we do that? I'm like, the best way to do that is to use our voices. And so, so then I reached, you know, I had this brainchild, whatever you want to call it, a passion project to like, why don't we do an online journal, get some friends that that I know, hopefully they'd be interested in writing a few articles, and then hopefully just see what happens. If it takes off, great. If it doesn't, well, at least we literally tried. And so, so reached out to you guys. And I think everybody wrote about a year's worth of content, which was great. I think it was 1 per month or so. And then quickly after the first few months, we promote them on social media to help, you know, bring people to the site. Next thing you know, there was more people asking like, hey, can I be a contributor? Can I share my story? And that turned into, you know, the online journal. And then it kind of morphed into its own community, where now we do, you know, 3 articles per week and whatnot, but we have all kinds of other things going on, but it's made up of so many different voices and experiences in that broad spectrum. Is that I think one of the like best pieces about it, or one of the coolest things that Trail Sisters can offer, because it's not just one type of person explaining something, it's all of us. And so, so that's kind of how the whole thing started. And at least.
No, I mean, as like another professional woman in the sport of trail running, this was a project that was, I mean, it just sparked my interest right away. So I was pretty honored to be someone who was writing, contributing to this, you know, kind of this community virtually, and to see it grow. But like, I want you to explain a little bit why you think actually this was needed, because I think a lot of other people, like especially in the world of professional athletics, they look at a sport like trail running and they think, oh wow, like this is so inclusive, like everyone's so happy, everyone's friends, like you can start on the same starting line as like these elite athletes and you all like run together and you're friends. Like, how could a sport like this have some sort of inequality with it? So yeah, why did you see that there was some sort of a need?
Yeah, sure. Because I guess maybe exactly that. It does. I think some people do see it as like, hey, you know, this, and a lot of trail runners actually will talk about like, this is great. You know, we are inclusive. Like, we'll take anybody, and it's happy, and everybody's, you know, huggy and loving, and yes, there is like, that is not incorrect. But at the same time, if you look hard enough and you really, you know, there's a lot of cracks within there. You know, sure, there are women in the sport, but how many women? Not as many as, you know, definitely not the same as road running. And it doesn't have to be comparable as sport to sport. But when you look at products and you're like, well, geez, there's like, well, here's 10 pairs of shoe from one brand for guys, and there's like 3 pairs for women, or, you know, there's this huge lack or just difference. And when you look at a lot of media, you know, who are they talking to? Who are the stories about? Are they speaking to the male demographic? Are they speaking to the female demographic? Are they speaking to both? When you see just imagery, you know, look at a lot of race sites. Who's on, what imagery do you see? Do you mainly see, you know, male racers? Do you see female? Not that it has to be one or the other, but having maybe a variance of both is more helpful. You know, so I found it really important to create a space where we only had the female voice, but the content could be good for everybody. But I really wanted to celebrate the female voice and essentially help grow that awareness and representation of, look, all these women are interested. This can be for you too, you know. And then every article, and essentially our whole motto is to inspire, educate, and empower. And when you have those 3 things, that really helps to grow, I believe, camaraderie, and then also confidence. And with all those things tied together, I mean, we can see more opportunities pop up and participation rise. But it was really about just creating another platform where women have some space to show that, hey, you know, we belong here too, and we have something to say about it. So hopefully that answers.
I love that. Yeah, because like one of an early articles, I think we talked about it early on, is you were kind of interviewing people about, first of all, kind of like trying to expose some of those cracks that you were mentioning earlier, like cracks in discrepancy in representation, like number of women who are actually sponsored with big brands and how much they're paid. I think now in like the last few years, you've definitely seen a kind of a rise of this, like putting a woman there, like more in the spotlight, because there's this idea that if you see more women, like especially a brand like the North Face, like you see more women explorers, that will encourage the next generation of set explorers. But also, so I think there's more attention of like, look, we already have all these, you know, people out there, these women out there doing these sports, but now we're trying to put them more in the limelight. But I also think there's kind of a lack. Like, I look at things very scientifically, as do you. And like, we really wanted to get the numbers, and they're pretty hard, because like talking about especially contracts and like payment and like number of women and in the sport, maybe, you know, there's some data points that are a little bit hard to get, but you were trying to write an article that kind of exposed those like discrepancies. How did that turn out? Because I think there's a lot of like mixed feelings about it.
No, that was a few years ago. But yeah, the whole goal was to kind of find out the discrepancy between, it was focused more obviously on elite, but payment between men and women.
I think that trickles down. Like
it does.
Right. If you have like a discrepancy, I think one of the, like, I remember mentioning to you, like some of the races that I compete in, like internationally, they would pay like top 10 for men, but they'd only pay maybe top 5 for women, or even like recognize women coming up to the podium at the end of the race, when really, if you look at the elite field, they were just as deep. Like there were still 20 men elites and 20 female elites, but they would only recognize the top 5 for women and top 10 for men. That was like one example.
Right. Oh, completely. Yeah. You know, so I sent out, so I know who I sent these surveys to, but I don't know who responded, because it was anonymous, obviously. And I had all these different questions, and, you know, so it seemed to be the biggest percent, like it's like a 20% or between 15 and 20% difference in what men were paid to women. And I think like this was years ago, but and it's in the article, but I think it was the majority women that answered the survey. Like I said, I don't know who answered what. And so it can be like, I'm not a professional statistician, so I didn't do this probably what, like anybody that's in that field probably be like, you totally didn't do it right, but whatever. I have a good like litmus test here of like where it, like a scale, if you will. But so like most men were paid maybe about 15K, most women were paid 5K or below. So there was like that much of a discrepancy, if you would. So like a 10-15% difference. And then one of the most interesting takeaways I thought, though, I asked a question about if you could choose what you thought you were valued at, you know, what would it be, or something around that. And most of the responses I got that were in the male survey were more than what they were getting paid. And with the women, they were, well, it was less, or, you know, about where they were out at. And I found it so interesting that's like, well, it appeared to me that the men weren't afraid to ask for more or just to go for it. But for the females, they were kind of more hesitant or timid to maybe to ask for what they really thought. And if they really thought that, they were getting what they were asking for, but it wasn't, you know, it was just interesting. And I was like, oh, we need to change that mentality and feel like we are just as valuable. And that's where, like I mentioned confidence earlier, I think it's a lot of that. Just believing in yourself, you know?
And that's exactly where I think, so, I mean, conversations like these, like what we're having now, and like an example of, you know, the discrepancy in pay and like, you know, with prize money and recognition, like these are just examples. This is kind of like to bring awareness, right? But I think exactly like you said, the main difference with that last question on the survey is like creating an environment where it encourages an atmosphere of confidence. And I think in order to do that, you need to have certain platforms to do this. And I think you saw this early on as like that maybe women as a whole in this like trail running community, like they needed kind of a platform to do this. And to emphasize, like when I was writing articles for Trail Sisters, like this content was applicable for everyone. Like it's really good content. But because it was specifically women voices, I think it provided like kind of a safe, like, I don't like the word safe, but like just a good atmosphere and a good kind of platform for people to be encouraged to be like, oh yeah, okay, like my ideas are valid. Like I thought the exact same thing as what she thought. Like, okay, like, I'm not that different.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's the fun of it. It's like anybody can contribute. Well, any female can contribute. So that's the one thing I do keep. The content can be read by anybody, obviously, but because I really want to hold that space as special for women. Because if you look in magazines or you look in media publications or just a lot of places, even in the industry, you know, it's really outnumbered by the male perspective or male positions. And hey, this isn't a him versus her thing at all. Yeah. This is just helping to boost that female perspective in certain ways so that we can create a better space for everybody. Not just, you know, one or the other. I mean, heck, you know, when you work together, you get so much further in life, you know, but if you're constantly feeling like one side's, you know, well, obviously not as equal or just not as respected as the other, it's really hard to get anything accomplished because there's resentment or feelings of doubt or the lack of confidence. And it stinks to walk through life feeling that way. So, you know, I think,
like what you were saying is like one side makes the other better. I mean, because we're all a big community, and I completely 100% agree with that. And as a coach myself, like when I like there's this whole idea, you see it in like the branding for like maybe like for ads for like a marketing campaign. It's like the shrink it and pink it, like you know, it's like like that's there. I hate it. It's like I don't actually like the color pink. Like let's like, but you know, maybe a woman's body is like different, so like shrink it and pink it doesn't work for like a pack. But then also in the world of sports physiology, it's like there's this whole like, do you know who Stacey Sims is?
Yes. At least I know the name.
Like, but basically she's quote, it's a very famous quote. She's like, women are not little men. And it's even in the like how we attack like physiology, like basically these studies for athletic performance. If you look at kind of the fine print and like the sample size of athletes that they're using, it's predominantly men, because I mean, women are maybe a little bit harder to study because of their changing hormones and like there's, you know, we have to like figure that out. But the samples are actually men. So it's like how we're training is actually kind of, it's not exactly right. But at the same time, I mean, I think if we kind of put more attention on women, it actually can increase like the overall performance of the sport of running as a whole. So it's kind of like both. And I mean, I think that we're like all an inclusive community anyways, because a lot of my training partners are men, like, you know, like,
right.
I mean, some of my biggest influencers of, you know, role models and coaches. I mean, my coach is a guy, Adam St. Pierre.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like what you said, it's not to be exclusive, but it's just a way to like encourage and to have, to just have like a platform for people to kind of share what's going on with them. Because I mean, I think there's power in storytelling also.
Completely. And it's, excuse me. And it's like I choke here. No, it's completely like education is huge, right? When there's like, you can't fix a problem if you don't know how to fix it. And how do you learn how to fix something is you have to educate yourself, right? And so that's where with the site and everything, like, you know, I've like out of the 3 foundations we have, which, you know, inspiration, education, empowerment, education is my favorite because that's something I believe is just, I mean, you can do anything in the world, in your life, whatever, if you just educate yourself on how to do it. And so by gathering so many stories and so many different viewpoints, man, we can become so much stronger and more confident in everything we do. But it's just a matter of wanting to take the time to learn that or take the time to share those things to help others. But it's interesting to read the different articles that do come on the site and just the different perspectives people have. And sometimes I'm like, I think I've seen it all. And then there's always something new that I'm like, holy crap, I never even thought of this idea or this thought, or, you know, so it's been a pretty wild ride in terms of, I don't know, that side of it. But
I did have a question. Well, first a comment. But basically, first the question actually.
Okay.
What was like one of your favorite articles that like topics that you've had kind of like a lot of attention or, because I mean, I know it goes over everything. So like give me an example of like, maybe not favorite, like top 5 or whatever. Like what are some of the recurring themes you see like of articles like published?
Oh, sure. Yeah, this one's always, you know what, and I should have this like in my pocket ready to go because I get this question. I'm always like, crap, I don't know which one's my favorite because there's so many that are good. But I think some like safety and awareness is usually a pretty big bucket on the site in terms of content. Also, we have a decent amount of content circulating around motherhood and pregnancy.
That was another topic like that I wanted to ask you too, because as far as like the lower numbers of participation of females in races, like I've been actually, so as a coach, like I'm coaching some women athletes, and literally, I mean, obviously pregnancy takes a long time, and some people have really successful pregnancies and they can run throughout them, but even avid runners, being pregnant, they have to like basically stop running or they can't run as much, or they're afraid of racing or complications. And so you have to plan this with like, well, if I'm planning to get pregnant this next year, I can't race around this time. And it's actually like, so they basically have to have a year that's like blank. And that causes a problem for like in ultra running where you're putting in for lotteries a lot of the year. If you can't re-qualify for like a 100-mile race, like what do you do?
Right. Well, actually, and to speak to that, Western States has done a great job with, and I think they announced this 2 years ago now, but I think it's 2 years ago, but they gave a 3-year deferral for women that were pregnant and had gotten to the lottery. And because it is just that, like, I think you're right. Some people are lucky. I don't even know if it's luck, but are just, their bodies are able to bounce back. And that's great. A lot of other women, not so much. And that's normal and that's okay. It's not, you're not doing anything wrong. You know, like it's just, hey, you just produced a little thing in your body, you know, like cut yourself some slack, you know?
And also the hip situation, like hips are pretty important for running. And there's this thing called science that, you know, like your hips actually change when you have a child. Right? So, you know, there's that to consider.
Yeah. And so it's, I don't know. I was really grateful when I saw them come out with that. And I know some other races have adopted that as well now, but it's not just like.
Yeah. Can you summarize it? What is it exactly?
So it's a 3-year deferral. So if you're pregnant during, I think if you get chosen during, through the lottery or you make it into the race or like are pregnant during that time frame, I believe that you have 3 years you can defer to get back into the race. So you don't lose it. They allow you to push it back, which is excellent because the fact your body can't, you know, or most people struggle to get back and to like train for 100-mile race. I mean, a 5K versus a 100-mile, I mean, completely different. So, you know, you might be able to go out and do a 5K, you know, I don't know, months after or something, but man, to put your body through 100-mile training, you need quite a bit of time. And so there is like, I don't want to say an unfairness, but it's just science, I would say, you know.
Physiology, there's
right.
So there's a difference. And I think I think the sport of ultra running is at like the forefront of kind of acknowledging these things because like you said, it's not like a 5K. These races to prepare for them, they take years. And so if you're out of commission for a year, I think a 3-year deferral period is appropriate because then you have to build back up. You have to, you know, regain like strength, obviously endurance, but confidence in that whole thing. And I think this shows that the community of ultra running, I think it is quite progressive. But it's like, it's needed. I think it actually improves the sport as a whole because if you're acknowledging basically 50% of, you know, the population of the participants, like how does that not like better the entire community as a whole if you're being more inclusive? So,
No, and then and motherhood, so the two like you kind of go hand in hand, but one of the biggest reasons why you see a lower participation rate in the ultra distances is time in motherhood for women. Those are the biggest hiccups right there. And it does make sense. And usually they do go hand in hand, you know. There's some awesome dads out there and they work their butts off and they, you know, like, so it's not like a him versus her thing, but when your body goes through all this, like, it's harder to put in the time and get the same, you know, get to where you need to be. And then
there is a time when like, you know, the baby physically needs the mom to like survive. But like, to piggyback off of that, like motherhood, parenthood, like, holy crap. Like I coach so many kick-ass guys out there who are like balancing family life too. So it affects everyone. So I think it's cool. Like if you can have like, you know, the stress off of one parent, especially when it comes to like racing and doing things you love, especially if that's like the glue that like binds your family together is like being outdoors and, you know, then plus like breeding the next generation of ultra runners. If they see like their mom out there, like kicking butt, like doing some things like, you know, I mean, there's a photo circulating in the ultra running world about, you know, some mom in UTMB, like literally breastfeeding her child.
Oh yeah.
Miles, like
total badass. That's awesome. But it's good because I mean, that happens. There's a lot of women, like I know women that will say, man, I wish I had the pump at all these different aid stations for this race, or maybe it was only once in whatever distance race it was that they were in. But sometimes they feel like, ooh, where can I go to hide to do this? And sure, maybe the percentile of this isn't as high as something else, but it's still something that happens and it's natural for, you know, like to be like, oh, you know, you're pregnant or you could take the whole like, oh, you have your period. So maybe these are the times you shouldn't be running. Like, I mean, no, we can still do all of that, but it shouldn't be weird things, or it shouldn't be like a weird thing to talk about or to.
And this is actually really cool too, because like as a coach, like the women athletes that I coach, like it's not that I'm coaching them differently. It's just like, it's more data points for me to get. And there's actually this really cool app that I have actually that I use with my coach, like that I can track when my period is, because it's science. Like there's different hormone fluctuations. So it tells me like, okay, well, like if you're feeling crappy, like your hormones are changing right before you actually have your period. So like maybe you shouldn't train as much that week because you're not actually going to absorb, quote unquote, like the training. So it's really cool because like if we acknowledge these things that like, no, like it's not him versus her, one's better than the other.
Right.
It's basically, okay, they're different. Just like, you know, Stacey Sims is saying, women are not small men. So, okay, well, like what other little data points do I need in order to coach you differently, or like if you're gonna attack this race differently. You know, it's basically just everyone's a human being and everyone's different. So it's just like kind of what are the little parts that make them unique, and then you can kind of, you know, for me it's like as a coaching perspective, like how can I best coach them to get their best performance. But then on the bigger platform for everyone, not everyone has a coach, but it's like if you want to run better and you want to run your best, it's awesome if you feel a part of a community, if you have like a platform to share your voice, if you have, you know, just these resources to become educated. And also it's just like through like this app, it's so funny. Like, you know, I've been a woman 31 years and I'm like reading through this app things that they have. And I'm just like, all right, I'm learning something about myself. Like, like it's kind of cool. And so I'm sure there's like men that are reading these articles and they're like, whoa, I did not know this.
Right? But I mean, I think that's just it. Again, tie in the education point. It's like, it shouldn't be stuff like in the past, you know, you can't talk about certain things, or ew, you know, period, yucky, or that means it's like disgusting.
Where do you think it came from? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
We need these things.
Yeah, I'm like, oh gosh, but that's cultural, and you could like take it back to history style and cultural and societal norms of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. But it's kind of breaking those like stereotypes down, creating a safer, bad word, but creating a space where these things are obviously they're normal and every woman goes through this. So it shouldn't ever be anything that we can't talk about or that we should leave out of the equation of X, Y, and Z. Like it's something that it should have never been left out in the first place. So we're kind of fighting that uphill battle of making it, hey, this just belongs versus, you know, like tiptoeing around something. You know, so we have this, so we started a calendar site. We actually started it, I think earlier this year, I forget the actual date, but on the calendar site, we have this thing, we started this thing called the Trail Sisters Approved Standards, and how we came about that. I spoke to different race directors and also some athletes. So this wasn't just, a Gina thought process of what we should do here. It was a group decision, but so we came up with 5 standards that are really important and easy and accessible for essentially any RD to put in place. And the whole idea is to do this so that it becomes a more welcoming and equal space for all the participants in their races. So the 5 standards, so equal podium spots, equal prize money, menstruation products on aid station tables for half marathon distance and above, and longer. And when I say that, I mean on the table, not hidden in a duffel bag underneath the table. You should be able to grab and go. It shouldn't be some like random, like, where are they? You know, just, it's normal. Put it next to the chafe cream that everybody puts their hand in and puts wherever, like, I mean, that's not, we don't make that an odd thing, so, tampons and pads shouldn't be strange either. But, and then also if they have, and then the 4th thing is, if you're providing apparel in the swag bags or the gift bags, you need to provide both men specific and women specific, not unisex or just men. I don't care what your participant numbers look like. When we pay that money to be a part of that race and your race t-shirt's included and you get it and it's a unisex shirt or it's a men's shirt because they didn't want to take the time to actually get women specific, I'm sorry, but that's a smack in the face to your female participants.
Mm.
You know, I think those quilt companies are in business all because like so many women get shirts that don't fit them. So they're like, well, what can I do with my race shirts? Oh, we'll make a quilt. You know? Do you know how many, like, I have so many shirts. I have so many shirts I can't wear. And you know what? Like, sorry to ramble on this, but I think it's important. But, you know, some people, like, that's their takeaway from their race. They're stoked. That might have been their first 50K. And they want to wear that race t-shirt because they're so proud. And, you know, it was an experience for them that they'll never forget. But they get this takeaway, and here they can't wear it because it doesn't fit, because it's, you know, not even made for a female. And I mean, not only is that sad for the participant, but then that race director, they also lose that great visibility of that person wanting to support their race. Mm. And then finally, the fifth standard is race line opportunity. And so a lot of times you look at, you go to a race website or even in the local newspaper and you see the start line of the race. And it's usually a bunch of guys on the start line. And that's cool, you know, dudes should be there, but there should also be women. And I think, again, going back to awareness and representation, when you see this and you see there's like, oh, maybe there's like a token female hiding in the corner of the start line, you don't really feel like, oh, maybe this isn't the race I want to do, or maybe this sport isn't for me. There's no women doing it, you know, but it doesn't present that appearance of being welcoming or inclusive. So the ask is that the race directors either make, you know, split the line in half, left side men, right side women, or that they make, you know, 3 to 4 announcements prior to the start, inviting women to come up into the race and to stand along the men, and, you know, or just get up on the front line for the photo, and to also, you know, have a great time towing the line and starting the race. Like, it's a bit of education too, for obviously the already male participants and the female participants, that everybody belongs there. You know, there's only one male winner, there's only one female winner. So everybody else on that start line is, you know, in the race with everybody else. Yeah. So what's the difference? I get it. Some races have bottlenecks and you want to sprint out there and get in the, whatever, how you got so much time to move around in the race. So it shouldn't be, you know, like, oh, you know, only these people belong there. No, everybody belongs there, you know? So those are the 5 standards.
And it's like the small differences that kind of like make it feel more inclusive. Right. And I think it's a good reminder to not talk about like, I mean, maybe people like get, you know, sidelined, or the focus point is like the elites, but really it's like, it's a whole event for everyone that's running.
Right.
Like there are hundreds of people on these start lines, and even in Europe, there's thousands. So, I mean, yeah, it's like to think about it as like the sport as a whole, and how can it be inclusive for, and, you know, you're encouraging people to do it, to participate in the first place. Like,
right.
And like to keep going and keep doing it. And yeah, to kind of go back off that point, like we were saying about how, like, to talking about all this other stuff, running is like one of the least glamorous sports in the first place. Like, my best friends, like, you know, they know everything. Like you just like, you go to the bathroom on the trail, like you just like, it's like bodily functions in like 100-mile race, like just like people puking and like left and right. Like, it's just mayhem. Like, why not just add everything to it? I mean, like, nothing's off limits, guys and girls. Yeah. It's like,
no, you're absolutely right. Like, I don't like to tiptoe around things. Things happen. That's how it is, and shouldn't be weird. We're human. Whether you're in a race or not, you do that stuff other places too. So it's not like it's leave no trace. That's great. Keep that in place. But otherwise, like, come on, like it shouldn't keep people away.
Yeah. And you know. Man, I think the coolest thing about this is, like, I'll just like tie in one last piece to coaching. Like, one of the coolest things about running is like having a community and like finding your tribe. You know, I like that word of like finding the people that you really fit with and really like feel a part of. And I think running has that ability to just like strip it down. And, you know, you can find runners anywhere, and you can just share a few miles and you can talk, or you can not talk. It's just the experience. And I think that's super important. Just as a lifestyle, it's super important in training, like to have a common goal whether that is a race or just like, you know, to get healthier or, you know, to get through a week, you know, or starting something new. I mean, like, you know,
completely.
I think it's really cool that I think that's what Trail Sisters is trying to accomplish. And I think it makes everything, like it makes the whole sport of ultra running, trail running just better as a whole.
Yeah. And a fun, I don't know, maybe this shameless plug, but on the site, there's content to read. So we have stories every week, right? But there's so much more. And one of the things tying into coaching is we actually do have a resource tab, and we have, I think there's well over 100 female coaches. And Hillary, I'm positive you're on there, but I'm like, yeah, well, but like, you know, it's really cool to, like I said, this is a place to really celebrate what women are doing and what we're pushing for, because there aren't a lot of places just celebrating what we are doing. So I'm like, hey, well, why not do that? Why not have that here? And so anyhow, you know, just to kind of piggyback on the female coaching side, I think there's a great perspective that women have, especially coaching other women. And so it was a cool little thing to put on there for the website and whatnot. But
yeah, and there's a ton of research. Yeah, that too. But there's a ton of resources out there on the site. And so what exactly is the site? Can you tell us?
Oh yeah, well, trailsisters.net is the website. And then there's all kinds of tabs for different things. If, you know, we talked a little bit about running with people or groups. We started a Trail Sisters local group program last October, October of 2018. Since actually it's now a little past that, but so a little over a year right now, we have about 95 groups throughout the USA. There's a few in Canada and also a few in Europe. And then within these groups, there's about 15,000 members or so. So it's grown quite quickly. You know, it's a little over a year, but the whole idea of these local groups is so that women could, you know, find training partners, or just to get more involved with their community, or if they're curious about the sport in general. But these would be essentially welcoming groups that are no drop women's running groups. So, you know, if you haven't done it before, you know, you can go meet up with this your local Trail Sisters group, and you can go out and they'll kind of help you along and just develop your experience within the sport, if you will, or just find friends, or just have a new community to hang out with, you know, for whatever the reasons are, whether you want to end up racing or whether you're just doing it for exercises. But just having the opportunity to meet with some people that are like-minded in a cool sport, or just being in the outdoors, we thought it was something that, you know, there's not a lot of that either. So why not put that in place?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Man, I could I could talk to you all day, but like this, I think this is like a great introduction, and thank you so much. I hope to have you on the show another time.
Thank you.
But is there anything else that you want to like put out there? I mean, I'll like obviously like link to all the social media channels and things for people to get connected and plugged in. But thank you so much for your time and for being on the show. And I'm excited for people to take a listen.
No, thank you. No, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate what you're doing for women in the sport as well, personally, and then obviously with the podcast. So thanks for being an inspiration to, you know, both men and women out in the trail. So keep that up. And when you're, you know, over here in the States, or if you're in Colorado sometime, come visit me in Buena Vista.
Oh, of course I will. But yay. Okay. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. And, yeah, we'll talk soon.